Good morning. You are listening to National Real Estate Auction Radio. I am your host, Doug Dennison, and we are broadcasting from beautiful St. Augustine, Florida, the nation's oldest city at WFOY 1240 AM studios. Through the power of the internet, this program is being streamed worldwide on 1240news.com. The show will also be archived on RowellAuctions.com as they are the host of this program. Additionally, the show will be posted on YouTube.com. We're going to be talking about real estate auctions, past auctions, upcoming auctions, different real estate markets across the country. We've got a lot of topics today. To help us out, we've got several real estate and auction leaders calling in. We've got Washington, D.C. calling in. We've got Los Angeles, California calling in. And we've got Moultrie, Georgia calling in. Our goal and our mission statement is to provide an educational experience for listeners in a promotional format for auctions across the country. Very pleased to be on the show for more than a year now, and very happy to be talking to you, bringing you real estate leaders and auction leaders across the country to give their VIP expert opinions about the marketplace, real estate auctions. The people who listen here are real estate investors, real estate brokers, real estate media, auctioneers, government officials, banking leaders, and also bankruptcy attorneys. We've got them all. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about the excitement that's been up in Washington, D.C. I have been following for almost a year, at least 9 months, the fact that there is a whole bunch of government surplus properties that the government owns, needs to sell. President Obama brought it out first in 2011 in the State of the Union address, and then followed up on the budget address in Baltimore. That was like in February. And talked about the fact that they've got 14,000 properties, and this has nothing to do with Freddie Mac or Fannie Mae. This is not houses. This is warehouses. This is office space. This is land and properties that are being underutilized and costing the American taxpayer a great deal of money. One of the things I talk about almost weekly is the post office up in Washington, D.C. that had been vacant for 10 years. And if you've ever been in Washington, D.C., these buildings, they go for blocks. I mean, it's just amazing how big they are. And anyway, every year it costs the government $6 million to maintain that property. Now, $6 million times 10 years, that's $60 million that you and I as taxpayers are paying for. And that's not right. And so we're hoping that there's a bill, H.R. 1734, that Congressman Dennison has passed in the House. He led and got co-sponsors, and it passed in the House, which basically talks about coming up with a commission to sell these properties, to utilize them more efficiently, and so that's very exciting. We have hopefully today a congressman coming up and going on the line and on the air, talking about his feelings, what's happening in Washington, and we're anxious to get his call. Why is it important as a taxpayer to make sure these properties are sold? Well, the problem is that most people don't know the amazing cost of a property that is not being used. And it's not just for the seller, but it's for the area. Usually the costs are maintenance, security, lighting, insurance, usually the grass cutting, or whatever it is. And this kind of cost it keeps on going. And if you don't sell the property, it keeps on going and going and going. And when that happens, especially when you're a government entity and have these properties, and of course the United States government is the biggest landlord in the world, with more than 1 million properties, believe it or not, 1 million properties. So that's what's happening. It costs the area too. Just like if you were in a cul-de-sac and you had a house and one of the properties was foreclosed. Well, usually what happens is the grass gets higher, the pool turns green, all of a sudden there's a cracked window, a broken window, some vandalism, maybe there's lights on at night from area kids. All that kind of stuff devalues your property next door. Well, it's the same kind of thing when a big property is shut down. The neighboring businesses, the neighboring properties also are being devalued. Until that is sold, until that is being used, until that is being brought into a situation where a new buyer buys it. He hires people. He gets contractors to work on the buildings. He buys products. Again, all of this stuff is like a mini community development program, and it uplifts the area. And again, the direct correlation, if it isn't being used, is all those properties are being down and not valued correctly, and also it's bad for the area economy. And again, if you're the government, you don't pay taxes. So if you are a new owner of a property, then you're paying taxes to municipalities, and that's obviously a good thing. Again, we're going to be calling in to the show. We've got Washington, D.C., we've got Los Angeles, we've got Moultrie, California. I'm going to go for a quick break right now, and we will be right back.
MarkNet Alliance is a national, membership-based network of 41 auction companies. Our companies are successful auction professionals with proven track records and thriving businesses. The MarkNet companies have a staff of over 540 employees who are working hard every day to meet the goals of their clients during our ever-changing economy. MarkNet companies are able to achieve these goals through cutting-edge technologies and ever-growing investor pools. To view the hundreds of auctions currently being conducted, or for more information, visit marknetalliance.com.
Okay, we are back. We've got our first call. Good morning. You're on the air.
Hey, good morning. This is Congressman Jeff Duncan. How are you?
Well, fine. And Congressman, you and I have never met, but I've been working with Alan Klump, your Director of Communications, and he represents you very, very well, and I'm thrilled to have you on the show today. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Congressman. What's your background, and why did you get into politics?
Well, for 16 years, I ran my own auction company in South Carolina, and worked for a Southeast regional firm prior to starting my own company. And so, entrepreneurial spirit. Ran in 2002 for the South Carolina General Assembly, the House of Representatives there, so I served for 8 years in Columbia, South Carolina, in our House of Representatives, and then decided to run for Congress with the vacancy of our congressman who ran for governor last year. And so I think I bring a lot of experience of being a small business owner, a guy who has signed the front of a paycheck, not just cashing paychecks. I bring that to Washington. I'm proud to serve with another fellow auctioneer, Billy Long, here, and we understand, a lot of things that I think are missed here in Washington about, how average families and average small businesses are dealing with the government regulations and the taxation and everything that we're facing in this country. And so, there's 87 members of the freshman class that came up last year, and they came up really with from all walks of life. There was RN, nurses, there are doctors, there are small business owners, large business owners, people in oil and natural gas business, people in machine shops, people that run funeral homes, and auctioneers. And so there's a world of experience, and I think we're having an impact on the process.
Well, I have had Congressman Long on the show before, along with Congressman Denham, which gets us into an area of government surplus properties. From my understanding, you're a co-sponsor, or you were a co-sponsor of the bill H.R. 1734, which is trying to sell or at least efficiently utilize government properties that are not being used. Can you tell me a little bit about that and why that is important?
Well, it is important. The federal government is sitting on surplus raw land, buildings, you name it, that it's just sitting in inventory. We're having to maintain. We're having, as an auctioneer, I know when you got a piece of property that's sitting vacant, that you've got the threat of vandalism, you've got the holding cost of insurance and taxation, although the government doesn't pay taxes, but that is less taxes for the local community if the federal government owns that property. You've got all these things, liability and other things that could happen with vacant surplus property. And so in the auction business, we use that as a selling point. We're talking with our seller that, look, we can turn this to cash. You don't need to hold this. You don't need to have the holding cost. It's costing you money. There's time value of money and all of that. So we use that as a selling point. Well, the federal government is sitting on all this property, and Jeff Denham gets it, and a host of other folks that co-sponsor that legislation that is now languishing in the United States Senate, I believe, but believe that the federal government can turn this surplus property to cash, help pay down our debt. We're $15 trillion in debt in this country. We're spending $1.5 trillion, almost more than we're bringing in as a nation. And we've got these assets that we could sell, we could turn to cash and help at least get our fiscal house in order, reduce our holding cost. And so I was a very proud supporter of that. Another dynamic that I would love to see I would love to see this property, all this surplus property, sold at auction. I believe in the transparency above the board process of a public auction where we're stewards of the taxpayers, so we need to make sure that there are not backroom deals that are cut to buy property where someone benefits by reselling it when the taxpayer could have benefited by getting fair market value for the property at public auction. So I believe in that component going forward, and this applies to state government as well. When I was in the General Assembly in South Carolina, something I advocated for there for state-owned property that we could sell. Let's not do it in the back room. Let's not have any crony capitalism going on. Let's do it above the board. Let's do it in an open, transparent manner, and that's by public auction.
Well, it's the most fair way, and it's the most transparent way, just like you said. And if I'm the government, particularly the government, everyone kind of takes a pot shot at you. In other words, if I'm in charge of selling, let's pick a property, a $10 million property, and whatever systems you go through, if it's not above and transparent and everybody can see it and everybody can participate, then everybody's saying, well, gee, I could have paid more for that. How come we didn't get more for that? An auction basically lets everybody see it, and it's the fairest way. And I'm hoping, just like you are, that these properties will be sold at auction, and again allow the local people that are near these properties to participate, compared to maybe the easiest way would be, I guess, for the government is to bulk these properties, and here's 1,000, and this Wall Street company takes care of that, and here's another 1,000, and then you'd never get the chance to bid on it if you're a neighboring property.
That's right, and it creates a sort of animosity toward the government, and people realize that we as government aren't good stewards of taxpayer dollars, and they ride by these vacant buildings, or they ride by these vacant properties that they know the federal government owns, that there's no activity on. They just hold it. Well, we're not a holding business. We're not a holding company, and the federal government has no business owning these surplus properties. Now, there's a very valid balance between a wilderness area that is set aside for future generations that, protects certain valuable assets of this country. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about Department of Interior vacates a building near Mammoth Mountain, and it's got some value to the either the resort or the real estate investors of the country. Let's give them an opportunity to purchase it at fair market value that's established only through the transparent open auction method that I firmly believe in, and I think most people do. They get the transparency side of the auctioneer standing there and every active participant standing there bidding in the open in a very transparent manner that's driving the price up, in my opinion, and everybody, it's a win-win.
Well, again, I agree. I'm looking at your bio here. You were named Guardian of Small Business Award, which is very, very nice. If you were a small business owner and had a property that you haven't used for a couple years, I mean, my gosh, what would you do? If you had no plan for it, you would sell it. And this is where we've got to get the people in Washington to understand. And I don't think everybody understands. Even the public doesn't understand how much cost there is related to a property that is not being used.
That's right. There's physical cost, actual cost of keeping it insured, patrolling it, keeping it painted or keeping it from running down. We all know the dynamics that take place in a vacant piece of property. It's almost like the gremlins are in there peeling the paint off the wall sometimes. But heating and cooling it in there, and so things happen to a vacant building that auctioneers see every day, and they're going out in the field and they see a piece of property that's been sitting vacant for a while. Those are holding costs. The vagrants that could get in, I guess the graffiti, everything that happens to vacant properties the longer they sit. And so those are holding costs, and then the time value of money. If you could turn that property to cash and then take that cash and invest it, that has value. There is value of getting that money quicker than unless it's in a rapidly appreciating market, which we haven't seen in the United States in the last couple of years due to the downturn in the economy. Then let's turn this stuff to cash and let's pay down our debt. That's what smart business owners do. Or let's make smart investments either in another piece of real estate or in some other kind of investment within our business. And I'll just tell you this. I'm going through an auction right now on some rental property that I have in my home county just because one of them's sitting vacant. The others, I'm in a joint venture with a friend, and we're just ready to go our separate ways, and we're going to turn this stuff to cash and pay off our debt and move on. I believe in it. I believe in it to the point that I'm utilizing it myself.
Well, that's wonderful. To bring the point home to our listeners, who are the general public and real estate investors and real estate media, there's been a property up in Washington, a post office that's been vacant for 10 years and costs the federal government $6 million a year to maintain. That's $60 million that the taxpayer is paying. Now, from my understanding, there's been a move that is going to be finally moved because of people like you and Congressman Denham that has pushed this process, but that's just one property. I mean, the cost is amazing, and taxpayers need to know.
Oh, there's no doubt. That is just one example of thousands across this great land where properties are just sitting vacant. And it's not only the cost to the federal government taxpayer being able to recoup that, but I think about the local communities that have federally owned property that are sitting vacant, that if a private investor or a private entity had that, they'd be paying local property taxes on that. That increases the tax roll in the local community to provide the police and fire and other services. Right now, they're not getting any taxes on that federal property. And I've got a county in my district, McCormick, South Carolina, that is owned, most of the county, and I think it's about 75-25, 75% of the entire county is owned by the federal government. Now, a lot of that's national forest and other things, but that county doesn't have a tax base. That county doesn't have an industrial base because there's no area to bring an industrial park in. The federal government isn't paying any taxes. So the school district suffers, the local county administration suffers, the local prison suffers. It's just a whole trickle-down effect because the federal government owns most of the land and not paying any taxes. And so there is another side of that equation that is often not thought about and lost.
Well, I think also is if it is sold and a new private investor is in there, I think the area businesses and area properties begin to increase their value compared to if it's languishing, it's really devalued, and that's important.
Oh, there's no doubt. It's like pushing the first domino. Once we allow these properties to be sold by the federal government, private investors, they buy the property, they rehab it, they redevelop it. Activity breeds activity. More activity comes in, and the community thrives. And so we need to push that first domino with passing this legislation.
Congressman Duncan, thank you so much for being on the show and your support of auctions, and again, you and Congressman Long and Congressman Denham, you're a nice fresh breath of air up there, and thank you for working so hard for us. How can people get a hold of you and to tell you thank you for your support?
Well, there's a couple of ways. You can go to our website. You can Google me, just Jeff Duncan, South Carolina's 3rd Congressional District. jeffduncan.house.gov is the actual website. Our phone number, 202-225-5301 here in Washington. And you can email me through Facebook. There's just a lot of ways. Go on Google, look me up. I'm not the basketball player. I'm not the baseball player. I'm the United States Congressman from the 3rd District of South Carolina.
Congressman, thank you so much for being on the air, and you have a great weekend.
You do the same. Thanks.
You bet. Bye-bye. Good stuff. Good stuff. Congressman Jeff Duncan from South Carolina talking to us about the need to sell these properties to help balance the budget, to get it off of the taxpayers continually paying maintenance cost every year. Also brought up the fact that a great way to do it is through auctions because it's fair, it's transparent. We also discussed that one of the things that we don't want to see, and hopefully this bill passes and the Senate starts supporting it, and it's really a bipartisan issue. Come on, folks. This is not a game we should play. We need to help our balance the budget and help our taxpayers. But very, very important message from Congressman Duncan, and he's from South Carolina. Talked about the fact that let's not do it with 1,000 properties at a time through a Wall Street investment firm. The people in the area deserve to be able to bid on one individual asset at a time. And that's the fairest way, it's the most transparent way, and you'll get more money. I mean, obviously, if you sell in bulk, you're going to get less money. That's just the way it is. Folks, you're listening to the show today. Congressman Duncan just got off. He's been talking about auctions, talking about the government surplus properties. We've got lots more. We're going to go for a break, but want to thank you for listening on really a beautiful day, at least in Florida. And again, we're going to have Los Angeles coming on and Georgia coming on a little bit later. Thank you, Congressman Duncan, for calling in and airing your views. Appreciate it. All right, we are back. You're listening to the National Real Estate Auction Radio Show. We broadcast every Friday from 10 to 11 on the Eastern Seaboard. We broadcast from the nation's oldest city, St. Augustine, Florida, at WFOY 1240 AM studios. We just listened to Congressman Duncan, Jeff Duncan from South Carolina. He is a former auctioneer. And mentioned in the interview that also Congressman Billy Long from Missouri is also a former auctioneer. They're both freshman congressmen, and they, along with Congressman Jeff Denham, have really worked hard to get government surplus properties on the forefront. Let's go to our next caller. Good morning. You're on the air.
Hi, Doug. Dan Feldman and Darren Kennedy from Colliers, Los Angeles. How are you today?
Well, great. Thank you guys for calling in. We just had Congressman Jeff Duncan call in and talk about government surplus properties. And And I got through you two guys. I've never met you two, Dan and Darren, but I got through you two from Mike Fay, who Mike Fay and I did an auction and participated in an auction about a year and a half ago, and it was extremely successful. It was for a shopping center in Miami that had a minimum bid of $16 million, actually sold for $21 million. And he said, you two are the ones that I should talk to about government surplus properties, what's going on in California. So, Dan, why don't you start? Tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about Colliers.
Colliers International is in about 52 countries. We've got over 10,000 employees. The service that Darren and I provide out here in Los Angeles is government solutions. What we do is we work with government entities throughout the nation and international with regards to properties that are challenged. And what we do is we bring a set of skills to the table, whether it's through disposition, realignment, or even, say back in 2007, development. So what we focus on specifically right now is more of on the disposition side. And we currently are working with a number of government agencies, and we manage a portfolio of anywhere between 150 to 200 properties at any stage of disposition or realignment so that it can be put back in from the public sector back to private hands.
Well, excellent, you guys.
Yeah. And Doug, this is Darren. I would
Yes.
just jumping in. I think your interview with the congressman couldn't have been more timely. A lot of the themes and ideas and practices that he was discussing with you, we've actually put into practical application. A quick example with respect to auctions, and you mentioned your interaction with Mike Fay. We've actually had an exclusive relationship as the financial advisor to the Department of the Army over the past 7 or 8 years. And I'm sorry, not the Department of the Army. We've also worked with them, but in this case, the Department of the Navy.
Mm-hmm.
And through the BRAC process, we've assisted them with the disposal of bases that they've closed down. So this is the BRAC process, as you know, is really the precursor, and the disposal of surplus properties is the precursor to what GSA is trying to do. And so we've had practical experience and assisted the Navy with the most successful disposal of one of their largest former Navy bases through an online auction process. And that was several years ago. Since then, we've helped them dispose of several other of their former bases through an auction process as well. And where we really excel, Doug, is bringing private sector best practices to bear for our government agency clients, and developing the most efficient business process to help them dispose of their properties in a faster, better, cheaper, and more transparent environment.
Well said, and you and I talked about this yesterday as far as the Navy bases, and it was extremely successful, and I wish more of those bases did sell compared to being given to the local communities where that's nice, and maybe we could have done that 7 years ago, but now we're in a financial crisis, and we really need to sell these properties to get private business in there, because if the bases are given to the local municipality, well, then there's no taxes. There's no taxes, and there's no big business that's coming in. So it was funny because I asked you about Howard Kelsey. Howard Kelsey was the director of Navy Real Estate at the time that
Right.
you were involved in. And Howard and I, one of the first RTC auctions back in, oh my gosh, 91, I think, down in Phoenix. He was the director of the commercial real estate in the RTC auction in Phoenix, and we worked together there, and very nice guy and very knowledgeable guy. So it's a small world, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it is, Doug. And I think, unfortunately, I mean, if you could strip out sort of the political aspects,
yes,
I think we could focus on the economic value and sort of unlocking the hidden value associated with these underutilized or surplus assets. And I think the congressman sounded the theme of the cost associated with holding these properties.
Yes,
that's exactly what was driving the Navy in their efforts to dispose of these surplus properties. They were finding that it was costing them millions of dollars per year to hold on to these bases. And then a second driver was they wanted to harvest or monetize some of the value associated with that so that they could offset environmental liabilities on other bases around the country. And that's what, as the congressman pointed out, that's what the opportunity is with respect to GSA's portfolio as well.
But Ian, this is Dan, just to jump in there.
Yes.
What most people don't realize is that on these properties, there's actually a double cost to the community. The first cost is the cost to the taxpayer. How much money we have to pay on an annual basis to keep the property maintained at a safe level so that potentially at a future date, either A, someone's going to tenant, or B, that they're going to dispose of the asset. But then the second issue that most people don't see is that these government entities are not paying tax, so that the dollars to the private sector or to the general public to pay for fire, police, and other agencies, it's not there. So it's a hidden cost to the community that these costs are not being paid because of the tax-exempt status. So it really becomes a double cost to the taxpayer.
Well, for our listeners, I'll remind them that we're not talking about single-family homes here. We're not talking about Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae. We're talking about government surplus properties, which are warehouses, office buildings, land, that type of thing, and so I don't want to confuse the issue. Now, you two are also involved in the leasing area. Is that correct?
Oh, that's correct, Doug. I'm glad you brought that up. We are at the forefront of the government's efforts with respect to, or at least we've been in the last 10 years. One area of particular growth within the government from a public-private interaction perspective is that they've increasingly chosen to lease more facilities, and sometimes on a long-term basis. And a lot of this effort has been done through the GSA as the government has faced ever-growing fiscal constraints and challenges. They've chosen on a case-by-case basis to lease their properties. And in the private sector, you have a real interest on the part of specialized investors in facilities that have been leased to the federal government on a long-term basis. They provide a stable, well-returning asset from an investment standpoint, and so there's this whole specialized market that we've been getting involved in, where we're working with developers who are coordinating with the government to develop specialized mission-critical facilities on a lease basis. And we've developed a whole platform within Colliers to do that. It's just one more avenue of working with the government as their advisor to develop the best business process to acquire new facilities or dispose of properties or reposition facilities. Unfortunately, we can talk about disposal of facilities, but the government does need to keep its existing facilities, which it is using. They do need to keep those up and even acquire new facilities. So it's another aspect of the process.
They are the biggest landlord in the world. Guys, I'm going to take a quick break, and I'd like you to hold on. We'll come back. I want to talk more about Colliers, what you guys do, and we'll be right back.
Thank you.
MarkNet Alliance is a national, membership-based network of 41 auction companies. Our companies are successful auction professionals with proven track records and thriving businesses. The MarkNet companies have a staff of over 540 employees who are working hard every day to meet the goals of their clients during our ever-changing economy. MarkNet companies are able to achieve these goals through cutting-edge technologies and ever-growing investor pools. To view the hundreds of auctions currently being conducted, or for more information, visit marknetalliance.com.
Okay, we're back. You're listening to National Real Estate Auction Radio. We have on the line Darren Kennedy, who's Executive Managing Director of Colliers International, and Dan Feldman, who's the Director. They are both in the government solutions area of Colliers International, both from Los Angeles. Guys, are you still with me?
We're here.
Great,
We're here.
Great. I want to go back just a little bit, because when you gentlemen were involved in the auction of the California base, I think it was near San Diego, was it? Or
It's actually Orange County, between Los Angeles and San Diego.
Great. Well, this having an online auction was pretty new at the time, and describe how it went and what kind of bidding went on, because that must have been pretty exciting for you gentlemen.
No, it really was, and all the credit to folks within. Actually, we were working with both the GSA, who had been retained by the Navy. And when they realized that they needed some additional assistance from a marketing and auction standpoint, they brought us on. And all the credit to some visionary folks, you mentioned Howard and others within the Navy, to try kind of an out-of-the-box approach, if you will, to disposing of a surplus property. So it started with their lead and their willingness to bring in fresh thinking and using an online auction process. And then what we did, which is something we're really good at, is we came in and analyzed the fact pattern. We didn't automatically, Doug, assume that the auction was the best way to approach the disposition. We came in, assessed all the facts, looked at the local condition, local circumstances on the ground, looked at the current real estate markets, and then we developed the thinking that the online auction would be the best disposition method. And we were able to generate quite a bit of interest through the online process. I don't recall exactly the number of bidders, but we had we absolutely had multiple bidders over a period of time, and we generated a very competitive process. What I will tell you, and what Dan will confirm based on our work that we're doing for another agency disposing properties on a national basis, it's not just putting a technology in place and then letting it go and just saying, hey, it'll work itself out. It's the combination of our on the boots, on the ground, local understanding of real estate and the local market, in combination with the implementation of an auction process that is critical to generating the highest value and the most competition.
And I would agree that what we've experienced so far in the marketplace is that the online auction platform, just like any other tool that's out there, needs additional assistance from local brokers. It's pairing a regional approach to say, I'm going to be in the Ethernet online in terms of getting the highest and best value, the most transparent process for the agency. But at the same moment, you have to make a connection with the local community. And the connection with the local community, what we found, is through the local broker being out there and doing the job that they do best, which is connecting with the folks. It's touring the property. It's driving folks to the auction. And when you wed those two items together, we have found that that is the most successful auction that we've been a part of, because it's not just some investor somewhere looking at it on a computer, but it's also people touching and feeling the real estate so that they are more informed, and informed buyers are willing to go to higher prices.
Exactly. You have the greatest, Doug, you have the greatest price discovery, and therefore you can generate the greatest economic benefit on behalf of your client.
Well, utilizing brokers on both sides of the auction is extremely important.
Exactly.
Auction firms usually work with a local broker to establish credibility, to have, in the Navy, men on the ground that know the area, know the community, know the property, can talk to investors. And then on the other side, we want to make sure that every buyer that's interested in this knows about it. So we pay the broker as kind of our local assisting broker, local headquarter broker, but then we offer commission to the other brokers throughout the country and throughout the world to bring in other buyers that they know might be interested in this. So
exactly. And as the congressman pointed out, the auction process affords greater transparency, and so it's a natural fit from the standpoint of advising the government or working with the government, because that's of paramount importance. In this day and age, taxpayers want to know that the most transparent, open, and competitive process was used to dispose of these properties.
Well, as I was telling the congressman, I mean, it's like, everybody's taking pot shots up there.
That's right.
If I'm the person that's in charge of selling a base, then man, I want to make sure that everybody knows about it. Everybody it's very transparent and very fair, because as the person in charge of that sale, I don't want anybody pointing fingers at me and saying there was something underhanded or back room. So
exactly
right. But Doug, I would jump in. This is Dan. I would say, on the base level, you're 100% correct, but in that case, you're talking, in some cases, hundreds of millions of dollars, and those individuals are well represented by legal counsel, brokers, and, specialists with regards to the properties.
Yes.
In regards to what I'll say lower dollar value properties, it becomes even more important, because those individuals, the investors, while are still sharp, and this is commercial property, may not be as well represented, and the transparency becomes of paramount importance.
Well, you guys are right on target. Quickly, we always like to find out what the real estate market is doing in particular areas across the country. I know you work nationally, but what's the LA market doing in the commercial sector?
Oh, yeah, I would say absolutely, undeniably, that transaction volume has been restored somewhat. While we're not near the levels we were back in, say, 05, 06 at the height of the market, there's
definitely a focus on the core properties.
Yeah, there's definitely a focus on core properties, and there's quite a bit of competition, and prices have been bid up quite a bit for more core markets and core product. So there's definitely a lot of people are relieved that transaction volume has come back somewhat, and there's still quite a bit of uncertainty out there, but we're all grateful that it's not quite the dark days it was a couple years ago.
How is financing? Is that more available now?
Absolutely. Undeniably, banks have become more willing to lend. I'd say that criteria are a little bit more stringent than they were back in the day, but it's not the situation where the financing spigot had just literally been turned off for a year or two. Now, with the rates as low as they are, there's a real opportunity, and that's definitely a driver in people's willingness to go out and acquire properties.
Well, gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for calling in today. How can people contact you as obviously experts in the government solutions area, but also in the LA market?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the easiest way, if I could, I would just our most recent effort with our GSA exchange platform. I'd just like to say that folks can learn more about what we're doing there at www.gsaxchange.com, gsaexchange.com, and that's a great way to access what we're doing there, and then by extension reach out and contact us here at Colliers.
Well, gentlemen, Darren Kennedy, Dan Feldman, again, never met you gentlemen, but obviously we know people from the past. Thank you for calling in. Also want to thank Michael Fay again for getting us both together. Colliers is a wonderful group, and particularly thank you for calling in so early, because I know it's 3 hours earlier there.
Oh, thank you, and thank you again for having us on the show today.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Have a good day. Bye.
Okay. Nice interview from Darren Kennedy, who's the Executive Managing Director of the Government Solutions Group at Colliers, and also Dan Feldman, who's the Director in that same group. They know their stuff. Thank you again, Mike Fay, for getting us together. Again, Michael Fay from Miami, Florida. We did an auction together for a shopping center in Miami that the minimum bid was $16 million, and it was a bankruptcy auction. We had 160 bids, believe it or not, right in the courtroom. I was the auction project manager. Michael Fay was involved, and his team was involved, and we got $21 million, a very big success, and that's how I got together with Mike Fay. We talked about the way auctioneers work with real estate professionals. I just want to drive that point home one more time. Real estate professionals can make money with real estate auctions. How? Well, they can register buyers for an auction, and the seller and or the auction firm pays that broker for bringing the buyer, registering the buyer when the property does sell and close. Also, auction referrals. There's brokers out there that work with sellers, and they say, we need to have a sale real quick. Give us a call, and we'd love to work with you, and then we compensate you for that too. Also, we talked with Colliers about the local auction headquarters. Auction firms work with real estate brokers and firms to become their on-site marketing group, and we pay them for that. And the last is, if you're a real estate professional, you know what the properties are worth, so get in the process. You can buy at an auction. Wonderful thing. It's always that in a down market, that is when people get rich. They buy it at a low cost and end up holding it for a while, selling it at a better price, and in many instances making millions. Want to say that Rowell Auctions is our host. They can be found at rowellauctions.com. They have 14 upcoming auctions coming on right now. 2 of them for bank properties. I think one's like 140 properties, one's like 70 properties. You want to go on that website. It's rowellauctions.com. Or you can call them at 800-323-8388. That's 800-323-8388. rowellauctions.com. Again, they are the host of the program. I can be reached there. I work for Rowell Auctions as their national sales coordinator. This show, again, sponsored by Rowell Auctions, as a way to really educate the public and provide a format for auctions, again, across the country. Have enjoyed our guest today, Congressman Jeff Duncan from Washington, D.C. He represents South Carolina. We also had Colliers from Los Angeles. Want to thank everybody for listening. We will be back next week, and have a very, very good weekend. Thank you.